AITA for not wanting anything to do with my dad, after he treated my mum badly for years. I found out my parents were getting divorced 3 months ago, and somehow I'm still struggling to process it. I'm 24 years old. My parents have been married for 27 years. For most of my life, I thought they had one of those boring, stable marriages that people complain about but secretly wish they had. Not perfect, not romantic, just permanent. Then my mom sat me down at her kitchen table and told me she was filing for divorce. The weird part wasn't that she was leaving my dad. The weird part was finding out she should have left him decades ago. I remember exactly how she said it. She was stirring her coffee even though she wasn't putting anything in it. "Your father and I are divorcing." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it sounded impossible. My parents were like gravity, they just existed. "What happened?" I asked. Mom looked at me for a few seconds, then she said something that completely changed how I viewed my childhood. "Nothing happened recently." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "I mean your father has been cheating on me for almost our entire marriage." At first I genuinely thought she was joking, then I looked at her face. She wasn't joking, not even a little. I remember feeling cold all over. "What?" She nodded. "I found out the first time when you were 3. I just stared at her. 3, I was 24 years old. That meant she'd been carrying this around for 21 years without telling me. "One affair?" I asked. Mom laughed. It was the saddest laugh I've ever heard. "No." Then she looked me straight in the eye. "There were many." I didn't know what to say. Every memory I had of my family suddenly felt fake. Every vacation, every birthday, every Christmas morning. Mom explained that Dad never really tried to hide it. He traveled for work, stayed out late, took mysterious phone calls, disappeared for weekends. Sometimes women would call the house. Sometimes she'd find receipts. Sometimes she'd hear rumors. Every few years she'd confront him. Every few years he'd deny everything. Then somehow convince her she was overreacting. I asked why she stayed. The answer came immediately. "You." I hated hearing that, not because I didn't believe her, because I did. "I didn't want you growing up in a broken home," she said. I remember feeling sick. Because parents always say they're staying together for the kids. You hear it so often it sounds click. But sitting across from my mother and seeing the exhaustion in her face, I realized she'd actually meant it. She'd sacrificed decades of her life because she thought she was protecting me. I didn't know whether to cry or apologize. Then I asked the obvious question. "If you've known for years, why leave now?" Mom was quiet for a long time. Then she told me, and honestly, I think it broke my heart more than the affairs did. About 8 months earlier, Dad had started seeing another woman. At first it seemed like business as usual. Another affair. Another lie. Another humiliation. Except this time was different. This woman wasn't temporary. She'd apparently been around for almost 4 years, longer than any of the others. Mom discovered they were planning a future together, not someday. Now, the woman was pregnant. My father was 52 years old and having a baby with his mistress. I thought Mom was joking. She wasn't. According to her, she'd found messages on his laptop. Messages discussing houses, baby names, schools, financial plans, everything. My dad had essentially built a second life while still married, but somehow that still wasn't the thing that made her leave. What finally pushed her over the edge happened a month later. One of Mom's friends accidentally sent her screenshots from social media. The mistress had posted engagement photos with my father. The caption talked about finally finding her soulmate after years of waiting. Years. Mom recognized the date. The photos had been taken while my parents were still very much married. When she confronted Dad, he didn't apologize. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look embarrassed. Instead, he said something unbelievable. People move on. 27 years of marriage, and that was his response. Mom asked what he meant. Dad shrugged and said he assumed she'd understand eventually. Understand what? That he was engaged to another woman while still married? Apparently yes. Then he said the sentence that finally ended his marriage. "I figured you'd be happy now that our job is done." Our job. As if raising me had been a work assignment. As if she was some employee whose contract had expired. Mom told me she looked at him and suddenly saw a stranger. Not the man she'd married. Not my father. Just a selfish old man who genuinely believed he'd done nothing wrong. For 27 years she'd convinced herself there was a reason to stay. A purpose. A goal. She thought she was preserving a family. Then she realized she was the only person preserving anything. Dad had already left years ago, he just wanted her around to make his life easier. The next morning she contacted a lawyer. When I heard all this, I was furious, mostly at my dad, partly at reality. I called him that night. He answered cheerfully, like everything was normal. I asked him if Mom was telling the truth. His response was immediate. Your mother's losing her mind. Not no, not that's ridiculous. Just that she was losing her mind. I asked if he got another woman pregnant. Long pause, then he sighed dramatically. As usual, your mother only tells half the story. That wasn't a denial either. The conversation went downhill fast. Dad insisted the marriage had been unhappy for years. I asked why he didn't get divorced. He said it would have been complicated. Complicated. Apparently cheating for decades was simpler. Then he started complaining about my mother, how she was bitter, how she held grudges, how she was trying to destroy him financially. Eventually, I interrupted him. When exactly did you become the victim here? Silence. Then he got angry, really angry. He accused Mom of poisoning me against him, which was funny because she spent 21 years doing the exact opposite. The call ended with him hanging up on me. Afterward, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall. I kept thinking about my childhood. And the more I thought about it, the more things started making sense. The business trips, the missed anniversaries, the constant tension, the way Mom always looked tired. I used to think every family function felt slightly awkward because that's how families were. Now I realized my mother had probably been carrying a mountain of pain the entire time. A few weeks later, I learned something even worse. Almost everyone knew. Not literally everyone, but enough people. Family, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Apparently my father's affairs were one of those open secrets nobody talked about directly. People would hint, people would gossip, people would exchange looks, but nobody told me. And nobody told Mom anything she didn't already know. I felt humiliated, like I'd been the last person to learn the truth about my own family. The divorce process became ugly almost immediately. Dad fought everything, every account, every asset, every piece of property. According to him, Mom was being unreasonable. He genuinely believed she should just quietly step aside after dedicating 27 years to their marriage. Then came the moment that completely destroyed whatever sympathy I had left. My cousin got married in April. Both of my parents attended. The divorce wasn't finalized yet. Technically, they were still married. Dad showed up with the mistress, pregnant, wearing a giant engagement ring, at a family wedding. I watched relatives trying not to stare. I watched my mother walk into that room, and for the first time in my life I saw her look completely defeated. Not angry, not heartbroken, just tired, so unbelievably tired. Then something unexpected happened. She straightened her shoulders, smiled, and walked right past them. No scene, no tears, no confrontation, nothing. She spent the evening laughing with cousins, dancing, and having fun. Meanwhile, Dad spent the entire reception looking irritated. The mistress looked uncomfortable, and Mom looked free. For the first time maybe ever. That was the moment I realized something. Dad thought the divorce was punishment. Mom saw it as freedom. A few weeks ago we had dinner together, just the two of us. She looked younger somehow, lighter, like she'd finally set down something heavy. I asked if she regretted staying all those years. She thought about it. Then she surprised me. No, I expected anger, bitterness, resentment. Instead, she smiled. I got you. I almost cried. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. But if I could teach you one thing from all of this, it's that love should never cost you yourself. I think about that sentence a lot, because my mother spent 27 years sacrificing herself for what she thought was her family. And in the end, the thing that finally broke her wasn't another affair. It wasn't another lie. It wasn't even another humiliation. It was realizing that the man she'd sacrificed everything for never appreciated any of it, not for a single day. My father still insists he's done nothing wrong. He tells people my mother has lost her marbles, that she's dramatic, that she's rewriting history. Maybe that's easier than admitting the truth, because the truth is simple. My mother gave him 27 years, and he treated them like they were disposable. The divorce should be finalized next month. Dad will probably marry his fiancée. They'll probably have their new baby, and life will move on. But every time someone asks me how I feel about it, my answer is the same. I'm sad my parents are getting divorced. I'm furious it took this long. And I'm proud of my mother for finally choosing herself. I never want to end up with a man like my father. Update. It's been 2 years since my dad left my mum. I've had no contact with him and I've never met my half-sister. 5 months ago, my dad reached out to me. I ignored him at first and then he called my workplace. I had no choice but to listen. He was crying on the phone and said he made a mistake. He had been trying to get my mum's attention, but she won't answer any calls from him or even open the door when he turned up at her home. I had never heard my dad cry before, but I didn't feel any sympathy. I sat there, at my desk, listening to him through my headset. He wanted my mum back. He kept saying he made a mistake. Just to get him off the phone, I said I would phone him this evening. I knew if I didn't call him that evening, he would call my workplace again. So I had no option but to call him. He said he was finding it hard because his new wife expected him to help care for their baby. He was tired all the time, and the final straw came when she created a list of chores that they had to share. He was expected to change nappies and get up in the night. He never had to do that with me. My mum did all of that. His new wife goes out all the time and sometimes doesn't come home. She goes out all dressed up with full makeup. He doesn't know if she's cheating on him. I just listened to him. I didn't feel any sympathy. He asked where my mum was. I said she's just left for a 4-month cruise. He hesitated. He asked if I would talk to her when she's back. I laughed. When I stopped laughing, I went for it. I told him that he made his bed, he needed to lie in it. He had a good woman for almost 3 decades, and he treated her really badly. I told him he never took accountability for anything he had done wrong. Now there is someone treating him the way he treated my mum, and he doesn't like it. I started laughing again. He asked me to stop laughing at him. I laughed more. I told him he was a worthless human being and that I was glad his new wife may be cheating on him. I said it may be a good idea to save up some money because his baby daughter will need a lot of therapy. I told him to stop calling and to leave my mum alone. Mum and I haven't heard from him since. She still doesn't say bad things about him. We rarely talk about him. Life is good. I feel at peace.